Sometimes one big word is all you need to finish a sketchbook page. This spread had an empty space that needed something to balance it out, so I decided to fill it with some bold lettering. Have you ever found something from your past that made you remember a story you hadn't thought about in years? It was high school. I was 17, and second period was typing. Since I discovered that my mother had been reading my diary, I naturally came up with what I thought was an excellent solution. I started taking my diary to school with me. Big mistake. During third period, I realized I had left my diary in typing class. Within only 10 minutes of realizing that it was no longer in my possession, I went back to the classroom. It was already gone. I remember the stress of wondering who had it and who knew what I had written. And I remember having a bloody nose from the stress. I think that happened later that night, which means I spent at least one night imagining all the possible people reading my innermost thoughts. The next day, my bestest friend, Shannon, found some girls in the bathroom reading my diary together. She snatched it from them and brought it back to me. The names in my diary had been circled, and it took me a while to digest the fact that at least those girls and possibly more people now knew which boys I liked, which ones I had kissed, and all sorts of other foolishness that had seemed extremely important to 17-year-old me. There was also a boy in my typing class that I had a crush on, so I made sure to attend typing. He, however, rarely showed up, and instead of learning to type, I spent much of my time pretending to do the drills while secretly writing the things I would normally have written in my diary. Since then, I have learned a few things. Writing can be healing. Spilling the words out on paper can be cathartic. But my old diaries had pages and pages of rants about everything I didn't like. Reading them years later brought me right back into negative vibes. I have also learned that if you keep a diary, you should probably not let people watch you writing in it. And maybe, most importantly, if you don't want anyone to know about it, don't do it. Diaries are no longer for me. I would rather make lists of things I'm grateful for. These lists still become a record of a particular time in my life, and there's nothing to hide. I would rather rehearse what was good. There is another lesson in this old piece of paper. October 1985 was an opportunity to learn to type. Instead, I was distracted. Much later in life, I finally learned to type when typing at least 60 words per minute was required to qualify for a certain level of salary. That was when I discovered Mavis Beacon, and she taught me what I could have learned in 1985. I try not to be too hard on my 17-year-old self. She was young, immature, and had no spiritual education. If I could sit down with her, I would tell her, feelings are not facts. Learning to type is going to be financially beneficial to you someday. You will not meet the man you will eventually marry until you are 45 years old. So this particular boy does not need this much of your mental energy. And those boys in 1985 do not have the ability or the capacity to be good for you. I would tell her that paying attention to her studies would be a favor she could do for her future self. That may be the lesson I see most clearly now. Attention has consequences. What we give our attention to becomes part of what we learn, and what we repeatedly ignore may simply wait for us later. The crush is gone, the girls in the bathroom are gone, the embarrassment is gone, but somehow 41 years later, I still have the evidence. A piece of paper from typing class. A reminder of a 17-year-old girl who was supposed to be learning one thing, but her attention was somewhere else. And maybe that is what I would tell her most of all. Be careful what you give your attention to. This reminds me of a scripture, Philippians 4:8. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. That is it, and that is all. Thank you for watching.